Tonight, local reaction to the Hamas-Israel conflict.
Sooner or later, a tinderbox is going to explode.
Unfortunately, it is just the culmination of what's going on for the last 7-8 decades.
As the conflict continues, we'll hear from people in this province who are watching closely.
It's been a long wait for a structure here at Long Pond that's supposed to prevent flooding downstream.
We're anxious to get it approved so we can proceed with the construction.
Later on the show, I'll tell you more about a plan that's been in the works for more than a decade.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to a special half-hour Thanksgiving Day edition of Here and Now. We begin with the unprecedented surprise attack on Israel that sent shockwaves around the globe. In this province, people of Israeli and Palestinian descent are watching as another dark chapter unfolds in the Middle East. Here and Now's Terry Roberts reports.
Like many, this St. John's Jewish leader and retired political scientist was shocked by the attack on Israel, but not entirely surprised.
Sooner or later, a tinderbox is going to explode.
Wolonitz is president of one of the 3 Jewish communities in the province. He's not a hardliner, but wonders how such an attack could have happened.
The myth of Israeli invincibility, that they could handle it, that the IDF could handle it, is shattered.
Militants from the Palestinian group Hamas in Gaza launched an attack on Israel on Saturday. A barrage of rockets was fired. Fighters streamed into Israel. The chaos resulted in the death of hundreds, including civilians, on both sides. Palestinian militant groups claim to have captured more than 100 Israelis. Israel has responded in kind with massive airstrikes, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promising to use enormous force and cutting off water and electricity to Gaza. The attacks have been widely condemned by governments around the world.
It is just the culmination of what's going on for the last 7-8 decades.
Palestinian supporters in Newfoundland and Labrador are horrified by all the bloodshed and violence, but say the people of Gaza have been oppressed for years.
The desperation sometimes can end up with things that are totally, unacceptable.
Gaza, one of 2 Palestinian territories, is a small strip of land where almost every aspect of life is controlled by Israel. Saturday's attack came at a time of soaring Israeli-Palestinian tensions. But as Israel launches its response, those of Palestinian descent are asking for balance in the way the story is told and are not as quick to use the word terrorism to describe the attacks.
The fact that people have the right to defend themselves and fight against their tormentors, occupiers, is an entrenched right of humans.
Moderates like this Jewish leader, meanwhile, believe there is a path to peace. But with so many hardliners on both sides, it's unlikely.
I'm no fan of Bibi Netanyahu, and even less of many of its allies.
How far will things escalate? How many more lives will be lost?
The short-term scenarios are not good at all.
The only certainty is that peace isn't expected soon. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
The Hamas-Israel conflict is now in its 3rd day. Hamas announced today that it is open to discussions over a possible truce with Israel. However, Israel is stepping up airstrikes across Gaza, and rocket attacks on Israel are ongoing from militants in Lebanon and from inside Gaza. The hostilities were triggered by a surprise attack on Israel by Hamas on Saturday. Israel's military has ordered a complete siege of Gaza, cutting food, water, electricity and fuel supplies to its more than 2 million people. The assault by Hamas militants over the weekend marked the deadliest day for Israel in 5 decades. More than 800 people have been killed in Israel. Palestinian officials say more than 650 people on their side have died. A new wave of air attacks is happening as Israel's forces gather near the Gaza border, raising speculation about a possible imminent ground offensive. Well, back in this province, the housing protest outside Confederation Building has lasted almost a full week. Over a dozen people without permanent housing have been living in tents outside the government building since last Tuesday. The demonstrators say they want to draw attention to the lack of housing in this province. Members of the RNC were also there today speaking with some of the people who've been staying on Confederation Hill. The police didn't respond to requests for comment about the protest. Meantime, those demonstrators on Confederation Hill say they've received plenty of public support. Karen Peddle has been there since the protest began. She says she's hopeful the protest will continue to grow.
I want more and more tents to be here because I know a lot of homeless people out there. They're on benches and they're in bushes. They don't have tarps and they don't have the support. They don't know this is going on. There's a lot of people, and once they find out we're up here, they come up, right? And we got the tents for them, I hope, because I know if we went out, we would find people and they'd help them out. Because I mean, like, being out on the street and on the bench in a tarp underneath the tree is bad for your health, bad for your feet, bad for your soul. Right? It's hard on the mind, right? But to go somewhere where there's TLC and people actually care for your well-being, and I'm amazed with the support from the people, right? Like it's mind-boggling and blessing.
Well, people living near Rennie's River in St. John's say a $5 million project to prevent flooding on their properties must go ahead. It's been more than a decade since a plan was hatched to build a flood mitigation structure at the outlet of Long Pond. That proposal was greenlit by the provincial government last year, but the project is on hold until the Pippi Park Commission approves it. Here Now's Mark Quinn explains.
This flash flooding which occurs when we have a heavy downpour of rain in a short period of time.
The river is low now, but here's how it looked at this same bridge about a year ago. For David Winter, who's lived near Rennie's River for more than 3 decades, it's a recurring nightmare.
Probably 6 or 7 times during that period of time I've experienced considerable flooding to my property, some to my home.
About a dozen properties along the river are flooded regularly. So more than a decade ago, the city of St. John's started looking for a solution, and it settled on this, a concrete structure called a weir here at the outlet of Long Pond. It's designed to slow the release of water from the pond and prevent flooding downstream.
My opinion and the council's opinion is that the weir is important. The weir is a critical part of the flood mitigation infrastructure that we need along Rennie's River, and we're anxious to get it approved so we can proceed with the construction.
So what is the holdup? The structure will be built on land in Pippi Park, and the Parks Commission says the damage it will cause to trails like these ones at Long Pond is unacceptable.
It's going to increase the amount of water in the pond beyond what we would normally have under even some of the largest floods we've had. It'll be more than that, and so it will have more flooding and more damage all the way up along.
Talks between the province, St. John's, and the Pippi Park Commission are ongoing. But so far, Kelly says the Commission doesn't believe the weir will even fix the problem it aims to address.
We were prepared to work with the city on a solution towards dealing with the flooding all the way down the river system, but we just don't think that this is as it stands now, the solution to that. Why are we taking on the responsibility here of agreeing to this proposal, having the park, Long Pond flooded more, taking on more damage, but the problem is not solved?
At the city's public engagement sessions, some citizens complain that the city is proposing to spend millions on a project that will increase flood damage in this area, only to benefit a small number of property owners living downstream. But the mayor of St. John's doesn't see it that way. Breen said he does expect the weir will help property owners, but he doesn't expect it will mean more flood damage here around Long Pond. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a fundraiser in Conception Bay South is aiming to raise money for local research into multiple sclerosis. It's being organized by Laura Delahunty, who was diagnosed with the disease about 3 years ago. She says Memorial University is helping lead the way in MS research, and she's hopeful some extra funding will help them work toward a cure.
I was diagnosed with MS almost 3 years ago, and I work in the healthcare field. I'm a registered nurse here at Eastern Health, and I see all the benefits of research especially. I mean, there's so many people affected by MS. We don't have a local chapter of the MS Society of Canada here, unfortunately. But there is really excellent research being done through Memorial University. We've come a long way in the last decade or so with the different treatments that are available, but it would be really great to have the research to try to prevent people from even being diagnosed in the first place. That's what I hope to see in my lifetime. So next Saturday, we are hosting a fundraiser to help support MS research here in our province. The fundraiser is being held at Shenanigans in Conception Bay South, and it is a fully accessible venue. That's why we chose this place, because of the mobility issues with people with multiple sclerosis. So we will accept a $5 donation at the door, or anything that you can possibly donate is greatly appreciated. Last year, we hosted a fundraiser. It was our trial run for this, and we did it in our backyard, in fact. We had awesome neighbors and close family and friends that came by to help support the cause. Of course, we couldn't advertise that one publicly like this, but even with that, we managed to fundraise over $2,000. I would love for this to be an annual thing that we work toward, and we make it bigger and bigger every year. Maybe one day we'll even fill Mile 1 or a bigger venue altogether.
Well, a live look outside at the Narrows is a whole lot of fog. We've got a lot more of that as well as we head through the week. I'll get into the full forecast when I come back.
This weather update is brought to you by Steamatic Canada, the undisputed choice in restoration. Don't panic. Call Steamatic.
Well, Ashley, parts of Labrador certainly enjoyed some hot temperatures over the weekend, but that's starting to change, right?
It certainly is, yeah. We saw some really decent weather through the weekend, even some sunshine here in the metro area as well. Very different story today out there as far as the cloud cover is concerned anyway, but even temperatures up across Labrador as well. Started to drop yesterday, but even more so today, down even 1 or 2 degrees, maybe a little bit more. Churchill Falls at about 4 degrees colder than it was yesterday. And it's a tad warmer in St. John's, 1 degree warmer than it was yesterday, but those temperatures are still very chilly out there at the moment. 11 degrees was the daytime high in St. John's. That's right around where we should be sitting this time of year. We should be sitting around 12, a little bit above as you head towards the west coast, and still very much above seasonable temperatures up across Labrador. Happy Valley Goose Bay topped out at 15 degrees today, and you should be sitting around 7 degrees as your daytime high. And we've got similar temperatures in Cartwright right now at 17, but a little cooler there for Mary's Harbour. Same thing for northern portions of Labrador in the single digits. So you're right, within a couple of degrees of where you should be sitting. If we take a look at what's happening at the moment, we've got an area of low pressure to the west there. We've got this onshore flow, more southerly flow or southeasterly flow across the island and across parts of Labrador, and we're seeing lots of shower activity associated with that as well. But if we take a look at the pattern over the next couple of days, this onshore flow unfortunately continues. It's more of a spring-like pattern for us, really, and that's because we're seeing that onshore flow. So we've got this big ridge of high pressure that's going to set up shop offshore, and that is going to bring in that onshore flow. And that means we're going to see a whole lot more of what we're seeing right now. RDF, the story really, and periods of rain will continue for parts of the province as we get even into next week, the beginning of next week. So certainly in for the long haul at this point. We may see a bit of a break in the forecast this week as far as some sunshine is concerned, but for now, we'll see a whole lot more cloud cover and shower activity. If we take a look at the future tracker, we should see gray skies tonight for the most part, with that chance of drizzle, fog patches, pretty much the story. We will see some showers develop as we get into the early morning hours, though, again, for the southwestern portion of the province. Otherwise, lots of gray skies, maybe a few cloudy periods, or should I say breaks in the clouds for those of you through central Labrador. Your temperatures will stay a bit mild in Happy Valley Goose Bay, otherwise between 2 to about 7 degrees across the island, or across the Big Land tomorrow. Across the island, you are looking at your temperatures between 10 to about 12 degrees through the night, and single digits the story for the northern peninsula as well. The future tracker showing that we will see some periods of rain developing in the afternoon, particularly for the west and south coast of the island. We're going to hang on to the chance of some drizzle and onshore flow again through the morning, but then it should stay cloudy for the rest of the island. Labrador, you're looking at generally just some periods of rain. As you can see from the future tracker, it's going to be fairly heavy at times, and that will work its way further east as we get into the early morning hours, and we should see those showers or periods of rain towards the Avalon as we get into Wednesday morning. As far as rainfall amounts go, now this may be a bit overdone, but we could see some pockets of between 20, maybe even 30 millimeters of rain. The best chance of that will be towards the west coast. Otherwise, between 5 to 10 millimeters is certainly possible, and then pockets of 10 to 20 up across Labrador as well. Your forecast for tomorrow will be in the low teens for the most part, a little warmer than that as you head towards the west coast. Same thing for the northern peninsula. And then you're looking at your temperatures a little similar to that as we head into your Wednesday. We may see a few peaks of sun, like I said, for the west coast parts of Labrador as well. That will be the story into Thursday as well. And your temperatures really not moving a whole lot, and that's because we're seeing that onshore flow. So when I come back in a little bit, we will talk about your weather picture.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the Port-au-Port Environmental Transparency Committee says it will continue to push for a federal impact assessment of a proposed wind-to-hydrogen project in its area. Last week, the federal environment minister decided a federal assessment is not needed because a provincial environmental assessment is underway. But advocates like Duran Felix with the ETC say the World Energy GH2 proposal needs the added scrutiny that comes with a federal assessment.
The refusal has just steeled our resolve to, see this through. There are options available, such as we can resubmit when there's new information that comes forward. And there's some new information that has come forward that we feel will be of benefit and hopefully push for further review. However, as a last resort, we'd be looking at legal options. Right? We're not going down without a fight. We have the communities to look after. And so right now what it comes down to is everything that everybody's hearing is it's a one-sided argument. It comes down to what the company's putting out there and what the government's putting out there. And so a lot of people like the ETC, a lot of people actually in the community, that are affected are left without an actual voice. And that's what's causing a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety to the local population. The expeditious nature in which the company wants to proceed, they want to get this done as quickly as possible, with as little hiccups as possible, and that leads to a lot of concern and anxiety amongst the local population, because if you're rushing this thing and you've got, like I said, new legislation on that, things are going to be missed, things are going to be whitewashed, things are going to be overlooked. Federal guidelines have been around for years. Newfoundland only lifted its moratorium on the wind energy last March, I believe, April, March. And you consider at that point that they did not have any regulations in place, and they threw a bunch of regulations together, hoping to cover everything. And what's scary is that their first application of all these new regulations are against a mega project that has never been done in North America. It's the first of its kind by a company that was only formed just over a year ago and has no experience in this field and have never done any type of project, big or large, prior to this one. And so that raises a lot of red flags, because, it would be important to have the federal one done, because of the fact it would be more stringent and possibly cover a lot of the areas that the provincial one would be lacking. You're not going to throw, regulation that's recently been formed against something this large. If you were doing it on a smaller scale, it would make sense. Then the government can sit back and look at it and go, okay, well, this is what's lacking, this is what needs to be changed. But when you're throwing it against a mega project, if things go downhill, there's no recourse, no repercussions. And that's what really has people concerned, and the main reasoning behind wanting to have a federal assessment. This has been a federal provincial endeavor from the get-go. When you look at, what happened in Stephenville last summer, when you had the Prime Minister, Olaf Scholz, and various premiers, and then the hierarchy of the now formed WEGH2, it seemed to be, all their ducks were already in a row. And so when you consider also the close working and friendly relationship that executives within the company and various members of the Newfoundland government have, that lends a bit more skepticism to the resulting denial of the request for a federal assessment, when you consider that all levels are, interested in this and vested in it in some way, shape, or form.
Tuesday on Here and Now, a lot of tech companies are launching in St. John's, but this one could really take off.
So there's a whole bunch of end users. I mean, it goes from military applications down to security, down to search and rescue for agriculture.
A different kind of drone, one that launches, flies, and lands with no pilot. Meet the inventor and the invention Tuesday on Here and Now.
Org.
Every single pumpkin is unique, just like you and I. So when you're looking at your pumpkin, first of all, think about what kind of design or carving you want to do. So do you want one that's kind of tall and skinny, or one that's short and wide? And then what color you want too, because there's so many different colors of pumpkins now as well. Once you start actually finding your pumpkin, you want to take a look around the whole entire thing. You want to look out for cuts and bruises. So if you see any cuts that are gone right through the pumpkin, put that one aside, because sadly that won't last till Halloween. If you do notice a small little bruise, maybe a dent that was put there by a rock, simply use some Vaseline and just kind of cover the hole, and then that will prevent any air getting inside and rotting the pumpkin out. And you also want to watch out for around the stem. So make sure the stem is sturdy, and sometimes the stem will crack off, but as long as it's not soft by where the stem is too, then that will still be okay. And again, Vaseline is your friend. And you want to keep it out of extreme heat and extreme cold. So don't put it right next to a heater. And if you have it outside, which you can certainly do, as we have lots of our pumpkins outside right now, you just want to keep an ear to the weather. And if you hear a frost, simply cover it. So cover it with an old blanket, or take it inside for that night as well.
Well, from the pumpkin patch to the soccer pitch, the Holy Cross women's soccer team is the national amateur champion again. The team beat Quebec 2-0 this morning to repeat as Jubilee Trophy champions, thanks to goals from Jessie Noseworthy and Emily Bailey. It's the first time a team from this province has won back-to-back Jubilee trophies. That is great. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, fantastic. And as we end off tonight, you have a beautiful weather photo for us.
Very fall-like. It feels like, you know, now that the temperatures are cooler. This is little Piper.
Oh.
Piper is enjoying the fall colors in Gander. Heather shared us that, shared that great shot with us. Thank you so much for that. And if you would like to share your photos, which I'm sure there are lots of them out there, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
I was hoping we would get a nice fall photo, and we have that and one with a dog. So
there you go, even better.
Yeah.
West Coast, I know, is getting lots of colorful photos too. So
love
keep them coming.
And Piper is adorable. All right, well, that's it for us. We'll be back to our regular hour-long show tomorrow night, and I hope you can join us then.
Good night.